Welcome to Promo Insiders, the ASI Media podcast that covers the issues that matter most to the promotional products industry, from hard-hitting news to fun trends. Today, I'm speaking with Sarah Lavandusky, Executive Editor of Digital Content. Also, I guess I should mention I'm Teresa Hegel, also Executive Editor of Digital Content, different content. But today, we're going to be talking about smaller distributors in the promotional products industry and kind of how they're faring. So, pretty recently, Sarah wrote a really excellent piece for our website on this topic, and she talked to a number of distributors in the industry just about some of the issues they're facing. So if you haven't read that story yet, I recommend that you do. It should be easy to find on the website. I think we can probably put it in the comments at some point on here as well. But Sarah, maybe you could just start out by telling us how smaller distributors have been doing compared to the rest of the industry during the pandemic.
Yeah, well, thanks, Teresa, for having me. Yeah, not great, and I don't know that that's surprising to anybody. I know one of the companies I reached out to, or they actually reached out to me, when I was putting this together, and they just said, my business is virtually dead. Like, that's all they said. And, I think for a lot of the companies in the industry, they're mom and pops. They're small places. They have one owner, maybe, a couple owners, maybe it's family owned. They wanted to be their own boss. They kind of took a risk, opened their own business, and a lot of them serve their local community. So the way that the local community is doing economically is the way that they go. It's reflective of that. A lot of the people that they hire, they probably have some pretty small teams, and a lot of them are people from the area, neighbors, friends. They've worked with them for a long, long time. So, yeah, it was really tough during this whole thing. And I think just the fact that this has gone on so long, I mean, even the best managed companies, are struggling. I mean, a year into this, it's been really tough. And so I think now, with the reopenings and the vaccine rollout, it's been promising. And I think that's really good for them. But, even with recovery, it's going to take a while to get back to where we were, like you'd say, like 2019, when things were really good. It's going to take a long time to get back to that. And we actually did some research here at ASI earlier in the year. We did find that sales across the industry, across distributors, fell about 20% last year, which, what is significant, but would have been much higher. Yeah. I mean, if we hadn't had PPE, I mean, that'd be off the charts.
But, speaking of those stats, though, so overall it was a 20% drop, but the smaller size companies, they dropped even further, correct?
They did. Yeah. Small distributors, their overall sales dropped about 33% compared to 24% for medium and about 15 for large. Yeah. So that shows you that the small distributors really felt the pain of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I see a question from Evelyn Flynn. When are you seeing the recovery for the promotional industry? I mean, I think it's starting to happen, now, depending on where you are in the country and who your clients are, right? I mean, obviously some industries have fared better than others. So if you are, like some people that I've talked to, target the cannabis industry, and they said that's doing very well, and they're doing tons of products for them. But, if it's education, if people are still remote, there is not many opportunities for that. Events and trade shows, things like that, are still kind of bouncing back. But we are seeing, I did see, there was just a trade show in Las Vegas, the first live trade show, since the pandemic started, I think. And it looked like it was like at 50% capacity, but there were still people that showed up. And there's been some trade shows in Florida too that have been live. So I think we're going to start to see more of that, maybe especially in the summertime. And I think a lot of people I've talked to have said they're looking at like the second half of this year being, when the recovery really, really happens. Does that jive with what you're seeing, Sarah?
Yeah, it does. I mean, like you said, I think it really depends on where you are and the markets you serve. I mean, if you're really local, and your area is still pretty shut down, that's kind of tough. But if you're in, Florida, Texas, been pretty open. I did hear, it's open, but at the same time, like stores are still kind of requiring that you have masks to come in, just to be like safe. Yeah. So there will still be that. But, when events come back, I think we're still going to see, even if they're live, I think we're still going to see capacity
Yeah.
caps.
Yeah.
And so that's going to it's going to be smaller orders,
Yeah.
so we'll see. It's just going to it's going to take a long time to get back to where we were. I
Yeah.
don't know if things are going to look the same, but yeah, there is definitely some movement, and that's very
Yeah.
promising.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
I think another thing to think about, and I believe our colleague Chris Ruvo wrote something about this, is just like that anxiety of things opening back up. Just because things are open doesn't mean people are necessarily ready to go out to a restaurant or to go to a big event. So, there may be like a lag between when everything is open and when it actually, becomes bustling again.
Yeah.
Because, you can't be like kind of locked up for over a year and then all of a sudden be like, okay, I'm ready to go out there again. It's going
No.
to be kind of like testing the waters, and you know, some people will be obviously ready to go back sooner than others. So
Sure.
it's definitely like uncharted territory for people. Um, so I think we've talked about this a little bit already, but what are some of the biggest challenges these smaller distributors are facing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, early on, it was just a complete drop in sales. I mean,
Yeah.
like, people were telling me it was like overnight. They were like, the phone stopped, the email stopped. Like,
Hmm.
they were like, is something wrong with my phone? Is something wrong with my email? Like,
Hmm.
it was just overnight, virtually, it was like nothing. So I
Yeah.
think the number one thing is just the huge drop in sales, and that just translates to a huge drop in your cash flow, and there's nothing coming in. There's just the cost containment efforts of these companies have been like nothing they've ever had to do before. I think another thing is, if even if they were really well managed and had like a nice savings or emergency or a rainy day fund, that's been depleted.
Yeah.
At least there's been a huge chunk taken out of it, or it's gone. So they don't have any savings left. And then, combined with that, they said a lot of them just said, we're really, when the shutdowns were happening, it was kind of like these waves of shutdowns where they would start to open up and then they'd back off. And they just felt like they were at the mercy of people making quick decisions that didn't
Right.
always make a lot of sense. And
Right.
when COVID first hit, we didn't know a lot about it. And so they just felt like, you try to make plans and you try to open your doors again and bring back people from furlough. And then all of a sudden you're told you have to close again. So they felt like they were at the mercy of these decisions that people were
Right.
making
Right.
too. And also, they had to let go of a lot of people. And like we said before, these are their friends, their
Yeah.
neighbors. They've worked with them for years. It's so heartbreaking when you have to just say, I'm sorry, we cannot keep you on. It's just too much. The other thing is, applying for economic aid has been very challenging. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it was confusing. The rollout was
Hmm.
confusing. I don't think it was communicated well. There was obviously a huge backlog because so many people were applying, and not getting word about if you're eligible or the loan forgiveness, what that's going to look like. And then your
Yeah.
days
Yeah.
are going by, weeks, and you're trying to make decisions for your company, and you don't quite know what to do because you haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
That was really, really stressful on them. And
Yeah, and I remember like reporting on those PPP loans like early last year when they first came out, and I was so confused by it. It was, I mean, and I just remember like so many people I talked to were just like, I can't get it, or should I get it? Like
no,
you were trying to go to banks. I mean, like eventually some of the wrinkles sort of worked their way out, but like that first round, like the money was like scooped up in like a
I know.
second, and people barely had time to think about it. And if you're a small company that's not used to, doing like big level banking or getting loans, I know there's a lot of smaller companies that like kind of pride themselves on not having any kind of, debt or loans. So if
Hmm.
you're not like, if you don't have like that kind of relationship, it's really hard to, navigate that at the drop of a hat, especially in a time of crisis.
Yeah.
So,
And everybody was like, letting people go, maybe your accountant or whoever you had on staff, your office manager,
mhm.
your finance manager, you had to let go, and now you're trying to do it yourself, like things were compounding. And then too, which I had to think about this for a second, but they said, even if we were able to bring people back when things started to improve a bit and we thought, okay, we'll bring a couple people back, it was if they were going to hire, I should say, it was hard to compete with the economic aid that people were getting because you
Yeah,
have the
yeah,
unemployment combined with extra COVID aid, and you're unemployed but you're home, and these companies were
right,
saying we can't offer what the government can offer, plus we ask people come in, we have a production facility, we don't. So it was very hard. If they could start hiring a couple
mhm,
people back, it was really hard to compete with what people were getting on
yeah,
unemployment.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I know, like, especially if you have a production facility, the having to space, like, you have to space people out more, so you're gonna have to kind of change your layout. if people, unfortunately, if they catch COVID, then people are going to be out. You know what I mean? Like there's so many other logistical things that you never really had to think about before. So, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, why do you think small businesses are more vulnerable than their larger counterparts?
Yeah, I think it's just because 'cause they're smaller, they're more
Mhm.
fragile. We had mentioned before, they don't have like huge rainy day funds. Um, they don't have, endless resources, tech resources, personnel resources. Um, they don't have they're not capital backed. A lot of
Mhm.
the bigger companies have investors, capital. They're already operating on kind of it's very fragile situation in normal times.
Mhm.
So I just think with any kind of disruption, it's very, very, it's very traumatizing for these companies to have to go through and weather. And
Mhm.
then, compounded by now, 13 months, it's more than a lot of them can bear. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
early on, one of the companies I talked to for this said early on, they had to lay off some people, and because of the slow unemployment funds coming in and the backlog, they actually sold off some equipment to just raise funds for their people after they were let
Wow.
go. I
Yeah.
mean, it
Oh
was
wow.
like, yeah, morale was really tough at the time, and they're just very vulnerable because they just have fewer resources. But
Right.
I just
Right.
think that even if you're really, really well managed,
Mhm.
this has just been a lot for small businesses to weather.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we've all heard stories of businesses that have closed in the last year that just haven't been able to make it.
Yeah.
Um, Either that, or I think there's a lot of people that are deciding, like, now is the time. I've been thinking about retiring. Now is the time that I'm going to do it. Like,
Yep.
it's almost forced on you at a certain point. Um,
Sure.
so so what was the mood of the people that you spoke with for your story? How are they feeling about kind of the future? Like, is 2021 looking up for them? Do they feel like things are picking back up now?
Yeah, I think when I first talked to them, which was like March,
Okay.
they were the vaccine still the rollout wasn't there yet. So it was
Yeah.
still kind of like spotty.
Hmm.
So at the time it was like, they were still they were cautiously optimistic, some of them more pessimistic than others, I think, but depending on where they were.
Yeah.
But now with the vaccine rollout, morale is better.
Yeah.
And I think since then they've gotten more answers about their government aid, so that has really helped. So yeah, I think the combination of reopenings, the vaccine rollout, and getting more answers about the government aid. Although I know that that's starting to kind of scale back, and they're saying that they're
Hmm.
running out of funding, and but they've gotten some answers about that. But I do think
Yeah.
mostly it's really the vaccine is really
Yeah.
helping people
Yeah.
get more positive about it.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like there's kind of that light at the end of the tunnel. Like
Exactly.
it's hard. It's hard to be, because this has been, what, like you said, 13 months. It's really hard to like exist in this kind of limbo, not knowing what's going to happen. But with the vaccine rolling out, like that, it's like, okay, this isn't, this is going to end. At a certain
Sure.
point, like I remember just thinking, okay, this is our lives now forever. Like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
But it's nice to have something to kind of look forward to. We don't know
Mm.
exactly when it'll be, but like that, those feelings of normalcy are sort of returning.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, so, I mean, as far as the businesses that are still, plugging away and trying to make it work despite all these, challenges, what are some advice to help them succeed? I know you spoke with some business experts too, and they kind of shared like their best tips for, keeping going and succeeding even in these difficult times.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wish there was an easy magic wand answer.
Oh, that
I
would be
really
nice, right?
do. Yeah, I think it's really just where you are right now. I think, one of the big things is making sure that even if your clients aren't ready to buy yet, just making
Hmm.
sure that you're top of mind when they are. So
Yeah.
really, focusing on marketing and in ways that are low cost. So
Right.
working
Right.
on your SEO, making
Hmm.
sure that you come up in organic search results, really kind of getting a feel for the different social media platforms and having a brand personality on there that people are attracted to. So there's kind of that soft sell before you're going into, the hard sell when they're actually ready to buy. So
Right.
just making sure that you're top of mind. And I think too, they said they stressed cost containment efforts still. Depending on where you are. And also if you're noticing that things are looking up for your clients, and they're starting to call you again, and you're starting to get orders. Like, just be very careful that you don't get ahead of your skis and then kind of like try to bring back 10 people. It's like,
Right.
just be very conservative about your finances and go kind of step by step and build
Hmm.
slowly, because
Yeah.
there may be like a business boost after kind of people do kind of, they call it revenge travel for people who are like so sick of being inside. They're planning
Hmm.
these huge vacations, but there's also maybe revenge like shopping and buying, where people are going to start like buying promo again because
Yeah.
they haven't been doing that, and they're going to start splurging on their people. But I would just say, just be very conservative when you start to build up again, and just take it step by step. I think that's really
Yeah.
important, just to kind of manage
Definitely.
and be conservative.
For sure. And
Yeah.
then we have a comment from our friend Eric Campbell. He says, great reminders. So often when things turn down, they stop working on or spending even time on marketing. And that's the worst instinct we have. And I definitely agree with that. And I mean, I think one of the mistakes people sometimes make is they hear the word marketing and think it has to be something that's big and expensive. But just, posting on Facebook, sending an email, anything like that, that's all marketing. And it doesn't
Mhm.
have to cost you a ton. You can do that, like you said, you can do that organically. You don't even have to, spend on a Facebook, ad. I mean, another thing, like maybe if you've been working with your clients, even if they're not buying anything, I'm sure that they feel bad if you're doing bad. Like maybe they would be willing to, kind of boost your signal on social media. Like maybe maybe now's the time you can reach out to them to get kind of like recommendations or referrals. You know what I mean? Like maybe they can give you those testimonials. They might have some time. If they don't have time to buy, maybe they have time to, kind of sing your praises online.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah,
you can
that's
kind of get
definitely
creative with that.
for sure. Yeah, referrals. I think even just sending like a it sounds kind of silly maybe, but I think just the beauty of like a handwritten thinking about you note, just
Hmm.
with your card, just saying like, "Hey,
Yeah.
we're here for you when you're ready." I think even just that, like just getting a handwritten note out of the blue from somebody is like gold. So
Oh
just
yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that's marketing too. That's a
Yeah.
brand touch. So there's those
Yeah.
things like that are important to just keep your brand top of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have another comment from Evelyn. She says that it seems that business has really slowed down since January 2021. So, and what are you guys hearing? Um, So yeah, I mean, I think one thing, like one phenomenon I've heard about it was that January in some ways was an extension of the holiday gifting season. So it might have been a little bit busier because people were still kind of getting those because of the shipping backups. People were still getting those holiday gifting orders in beyond December. But yeah, like now there's a bit of a lull. Um, I think again, like a lot of this is very dependent on what what industries you're focusing on and kind of like what services you're offering, because certainly like events are not really happening other than in a few kind of select areas. But again, I we have heard from some people that are doing very, very well, even some smaller distributors. Like there's a woman that I spoke to who she was able to, I guess, she has a lot of engraving and etching, and she's been doing really, really well throughout this, and has been buying new equipment. But she kind of has done like pivoted to do different things. Like she is selling like imprintable blanks to um, hobbyists and like even smaller businesses, and somehow that's kind of sustained her. So there's a lot of I think there's a lot of fluctuations between even smaller businesses, just depending on who they're targeting and who their markets are. Oh, and we have
Yeah.
a comment from Jackie Pettit. She keeps hearing about money issues from customers. That's another good point because we've all been suffering, but your clients are too. So just as you
Sure.
might not have any money to go around, they probably are having cash flow issues as well. So that's going to be a problem. Is like, how do we, like, it's kind of like a snowball thing. They have to start getting the
Mhm.
money rolling in so that you guys can get the
Right.
money. So like, how do you, I don't even know. Like, I feel bad about it because I don't, obviously neither of us are business experts, but we talk to a lot of business experts and we talk to a lot of businesses. Um, and you hear a lot of different strategies, but not everything. It's not really one size fits all. Everyone's in kind of a unique situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, the other thing that we're gonna, be facing for a while is, there might be maybe there is kind of a big business like boom
Hmm.
coming up with the vaccine, like if their prediction is correct and a lot of us are vaccinated by like early summer, most people, we may see a boom. However, I think one thing that's not going to go away is the supply chain issues that we're still facing. So
Right.
you might have a lot of orders, but inventory isn't there, as an example. Costs are up. I mean, I think the Suez Canal situation didn't help
Doesn't help.
anything. So, it's like there's still these like ancillary things that have a big impact on recovery that are
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
beyond like the collective trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, the money issues. I mean, maybe if you know them well, it's like you can extend terms, but you have to be careful with that.
Right. Of
I
course.
mean,
Yeah.
you're in business too. Like you have to, your business survival is at stake too. So, yeah, I think it's case by case. But yeah, I'm not surprised because, like you said, Teresa, it's a snowball, and so they have to
Yeah.
start recovering well for the promo industry to recover well. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
tough.
and I think you're definitely right about the supply chain issues because you can see that just in like any industry. Like we've seen like cat food shortages and lumber
Yeah,
supply, lumber like a lot of people have been doing home improvement projects in the last year, but like wood prices, lumber prices, they're like through the roof right now.
yep, yep,
Um, Jackie Pettit asks, do you see construction companies buying promo to any degree? Well,
yeah,
I mean, I think that another interesting thing is that like the real estate market, maybe
yeah.
not construction, but the real estate market is like through the roof right now. I mean, do you have any insight into whether people are in real estate are doing any kind of promo right now?
Yeah, actually, so promo right now, uh, for real estate, I'm actually going to be working on an article pretty soon on that, so stay tuned. But
Okay.
yeah, you know what? It's a little imbalanced right now because they're seeing really low inventory. So that means
Hmm.
not a lot of houses on the market. Because guess
Right.
what? People who are have been home all year aren't really in a rush to like let people trample through yet on showings,
Yeah.
and open houses are like a big no-no in a lot of areas still for obvious reasons.
Right.
But people are like not ready to, and they've been nesting, so their
Hmm.
houses aren't really like, they've been improving them, but they're not really ready to like get them ready to show. So people
Hmm.
aren't really letting go of their houses unless they have to. So there's really low inventory right now. And then, but buyers are like flush with cash because
Yeah.
they've been staying at home saving money for a year. So,
Hmm.
and now the market it's not just like a few hot spots, it's
Hmm.
like all over the country because people have remote work now and it's more flexible, so they can kind of choose less expensive areas to live in. So as far as like, I think the seller side, professional services, mortgage companies, lending companies, they're doing really well. And as
Hmm.
far as like construction, I covered manufacturing construction for our big markets issue, our package that just came out a few weeks ago. And really what we're seeing is like not so much like fun stuff like awards for service and safety, but more like workwear, PPE.
Workwear. Hmm.
Yeah, they're still on the job. So anything
Yeah.
that's like helps them do their job is really what is in demand right now.
Right, right. So any of that, like the safety gear or masks or whatever, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see, I have another comment from Evelyn. It says in Louisiana, we just got out of phase 2 about a month ago, and I think this is causing some issues with our businesses. So I'm not sure what you do. You mean that just because it's been so recent that you're out of phase 2, or like what kind of issues do you mean by that, Evelyn? I'm not sure. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, like I think, like we've been saying, like because all the states are in different levels of lockdown, or reopening. It's really hard to know, who's doing what and what people are comfortable with or what people are able to do. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I mean, like it's interesting too. Like you're saying, professional services are and things that support those industries are big. And I think we had mentioned in the past, like things like pens. Those are big because people are not they're being looked at more as disposable in a lot of ways because you know people don't want to be sharing items because of COVID. So I mean, there's those kinds of opportunities, I suppose.
Mhm.
But yeah, like the fun stuff, the bigger stuff, maybe that's not really there yet.
Yeah.
It's maybe more the basics, the necessities that people have to you have to, like your uniform, you're going to have to like update it if it gets dirty or old or worn or whatnot. But yeah, the awards and things like that, maybe they're not really there yet.
Yeah, exactly.
um So yeah, I mean, I think this has been a really good discussion. I'm glad that a lot of people, hopped in to join us with some questions and comments. I mean, if anyone else has any comments or questions they want to, share, I guess now would be the time because we're kind of,
Mhm.
winding down a little bit now. But I mean, what would your like final word on the subject be? Like, what is kind of like what you want people to take away from this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's tough. I mean, I really think the vaccine is our light at the end of the tunnel. So I
Hmm.
think we can really take like hope in that. And
Yeah,
it's knock on wood, it seems to be going well. So I think that's something to kind of hang our hats on. I think that's
yeah,
really going to give people a lot of peace of mind. So that's
yeah.
good. It's not like we're coming back into this without having had a vaccine developed.
Right, right.
So I think that's good, but I do think it's going to take a while to recover. And I don't think that people should shy away from that. It's going to take
Yeah,
some time to recover. And, I think doing it smartly, strategically, being, again, conservative, not getting ahead of your skis, just being really careful in how you're scaling back up again is
right.
going to make a difference. So I
Yeah,
just think
yeah.
that it's important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a good point. I think this is something that we've learned throughout this pandemic is we're all kind of in the same boat in a lot of ways. So
Mm.
just be honest, with your clients and be honest, like with
Yeah.
yourself. Like I feel like now is the time that people can be more authentic and real. So if you're struggling, like I don't think that you need to kind of hide it. You know what I mean? Like there's always that
Yeah.
motivation of like I don't want people to know that I'm doing poorly. But like we're all kind of there in one way or another. So, it could actually be beneficial to your business to just be real with people. You know what I mean? Like meet them where you actually are. And I
Yeah.
see Evelyn has responded. She says, events are not going to take place till almost the fall of the year. Yeah, and I think that's true. I think that
Oh.
that is kind of something that we've been seeing just in general. Like people that are predicting like the return, it's more likely going to be the second half of the year, not now. So like I think we're hoping for like that kind of back to school season being, maybe when people, kids are all going, back to actual school and not, all remote. And maybe that's when like these events are going to um, come back. And
Hmm.
that which is tough, but at the same time, maybe now is the time to be reaching out to people that are planning events and maybe kind of helping them come up with new and
Sure.
different, ways to do things. Like maybe there's ways to get people's excited about going to these events or some kind of creative new way to attract people to events because I think like we had said I think there's still going to be, even though I think things are going to be opening up and even though the vaccine is coming, I really feel like there's still going to be some hesitation with people. It's going to take a little while for them to feel comfortable, so maybe there are ways to kind of help them feel more comfortable. And I think
Hmm.
there's so many different like really creative promotional products out there. I think there's things that kind of can help ease the transition. um, but yeah, I mean, I really feel like the second half of the year is going to be where a lot of the recovery happens, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
And I
Yeah.
mean, and that's based on not just like our own like thoughts, but also just from what we're hearing from people like top 40 companies in the industry and various other people. Because on ASI Central every month we look at the top searches in ESP. We look at like quarterly how the industry is doing. We have that pulse on like what the state of the industry is. So
Mhm.
I would encourage everyone to, I mean, I guess it's a little self-serving, but I would say, visit asicentral.com/news. And we always have tons of, information on, how the industry is doing as a whole, ideas of markets to target, business tips, all that kind of good stuff. So if you're not already, a reader, I would definitely recommend you, go and read some of our stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
and again, obviously, this is very much self promotion and self serving, but I do think that we provide a lot of really good information for people in the
Yeah.
industry. So it'd be a shame.
Mhm.
It's free, it's free information. So it'd be a shame if you're not taking advantage of
Mhm. Agreed.
it. So I think that's where we're going to wrap up. I feel like we covered a lot of ground. Is there anything
Yeah.
else that you wanted to mention before we stop?
I think you're right. I think it's gonna be we have to let the vaccine roll out, like people get comfortable with it again. And it's gonna probably be like midsummer into the fall when we'll kind of see things open up again. So it's gonna be a few more months. So just hang in there. I think that's really what it is right now. That's
And
that's
just
what I'm hanging my hat
Yeah.
on. So
And think about this, if you've made it this far, it's been 13 months, 13 months that no one could have ever predicted they would be like
that's
this,
right.
I don't think. But you've made it through this far, so like if
That's
you want
right.
to get all motivational on it, I mean, I feel like the worst is probably over. I mean, I hate to
Mhm.
say that, and then something terrible happens, and people be like, "But Teresa, you said the worst was over." But I mean, it does feel like things are coming back slowly.
Yeah.
So if you've made it through, think about how bad things were, like when there was that standstill last spring compared to now. So it's not things are not necessarily so much better, but it's not like it was then. So if you've been able to make it this far, like I think you can hang on and get through until we get to that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Mhm.
well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. This was a really good discussion. I'm glad that we got lots of comments. I'm really happy to hear from everyone, and I hope that you guys are, um, able to pull through and you know get your businesses on track and um, that things just get better and better. I'm really rooting for everyone. Um, but again, I'm Teresa Hegel, executive editor of digital content, and with me is Sarah Lavandusky, and we were talking about small businesses struggling during the pandemic, and hopefully pulling through and things getting better. So thanks so much.
Thank you.